Today we are making caraway dill sauerkraut, which happens to be my husband's favorite. And we ran out and he requested for me to make some more, so that's what we're here to do today, and I'm gonna share it with you. So for time's sake, I already went ahead and shredded my cabbage. I used one whole cabbage. I use my food processor because I don't have a fancy sauerkraut shredder. However, I'm kind of thinking about getting one because it has longer strands. But the food processor gets the job done. It's very quick, very efficient. It's probably kind of rustic too because it has some big chunks and then it has some little shreds in it. So we're gonna go with the rustic appeal right now. Anyways, so I already pre-shredded that just for time's sake. It was one cabbage. The next thing we're gonna do is we are going to take a tablespoon of sea salt and we're gonna sprinkle it through the cabbage, and then we're gonna massage it a little bit to help it create its own brine. So it's gonna break down the cabbage, release some of the juice, and let it start doing its work. So for the sea salt, you wanna use either Celtic sea salt or Himalayan pink sea salt. I've also heard you can use the Redmond sea salt too. I have not used that yet. I've just used these other two. You can use one or the other, or you can use both. Today I'm going to use both just because they both have different mineral properties to them, and I feel like this way I'm getting benefits of both. So, but you can just use one. I'm probably being too complicated, but anyways, so I'm going to, it's 1 tablespoon of salt per 1 cabbage. So I'm going to use a 1/2 teaspoon of the pink. I'm just going to sprinkle it around there. And then I'm going to use a 1/2 teaspoon, I'm sorry, tablespoon, 1/2 tablespoon of the pink, and a 1/2 tablespoon, well that's a little more than half. A 1/2 tablespoon of the Celtic. There we go. To equal 1 whole tablespoon per 1 head of cabbage. So next thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna sit here and I'm gonna massage it. Just gonna squeeze it, let it start releasing its juices, start to break down. It doesn't happen that instantly, but I'm just gonna let it start doing some work while I do the rest. My caraway seeds, they're just in a little container that I got at the store. Nothing to do with those, except sprinkle it on there when I'm ready. The other thing I have here is some fresh dill. I am going to just roughly chop this up and add it in with the cabbage, and then we'll massage that together too. So one of the great things about sauerkraut is it is loaded with beneficial bacteria. It's going to feed on the sugars from the cabbage and feed on the sugars from the dill, and it's going to ferment, and it's going to have, at the end, it's going to have a sour taste, it's going to be salty, but it's also going to have a lot of beneficial bacteria because those bacteria are going to feed on everything and they're going to multiply. It's primarily going to be the lactobacillus, I can't say that, can you? If you can say it better, hats off to you. But anyways, it's probably just me though. It's going to be filled with lots of lactobacillus species, mainly plantarum. So that's going to have a lot of good qualities for your gut and your whole entire body. And also, I don't know if you knew this, but I recently have learned it, that a lot of people use fermented foods to help ward off illnesses. So if you got sick with the flu or a cold, beef up your fermented foods and beverages, and you should kick that in the tail and be feeling better in no time. Okay, so I'm gonna add the dill. I'm just gonna sprinkle it around on here. And I'm just gonna mix it in to my cabbage. Man, that is some potent dill. And I don't have measurements for how much dill I use or how much caraway I use. I just dump. So I apologize. You can make it as dilly as you want, as undilly as you want. You can put as many caraway seeds in it as you'd like, or as little. And as a matter of fact, you don't have to put any of these things in it. You can just make it plain sauerkraut by adding nothing other than the salt. And there's lots of other combinations that you can do. You can be creative. You can come up with your own creations, or you can find lots of recipes. I got many books for Christmas that I am still excited to share some with you. I haven't picked anything out yet because there's so many that I can't decide what I want to do first. So my husband's been begging for this one, so I'm doing this one first, and then we'll get to some of those recipes in the future. Anyway, so now I'm gonna take the caraway seeds, just gonna sprinkle it throughout. This is not coming out very fast. Oh, there we go. Maybe if I use the bigger spout. Oh, there we go. That's coming out much better. And again, I don't have a specific recipe. I just dump until I think it looks like what I want it to look like. So now I'm gonna massage this through and then decide if I want more caraway, and also just get it thoroughly mixed up into the cabbage. I might sprinkle a little more. There we go. Okay, that looks good. So while this sits here, I'm gonna let it sit here a little bit longer. A lot of people will let it sit and squeeze. They'll sit here and squeeze their cabbage to continue to work that in and massage it and create that brine. I don't have that kind of patience, so I don't do that. I've made this kraut numerous times. I've made other krauts numerous times. I have never sat here and massaged my kraut. Maybe I should have. Maybe it would have been a sign of love. I don't know. But nonetheless, my kraut came out awesome, and it had lots of bacteria and lots of beneficial bacteria in it, and it was still just as happy. Now, I didn't send it off to the lab to see how happy it was and how much bacteria was in it, but nonetheless, I am confident in the fact that it was, without massaging it and loving on it. I loved on it anyways. I just didn't do the massage. I think it forgives me though. Anyways, okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is I have a half-gallon mason jar, and I also have an airlock system. I know a lot of people don't use airlocks, and our grandparents made it without airlocks. I am a fan of airlocks. One, because you're gonna keep the oxygen out of it, so it prevents any of the nasty bacteria from taking over and letting the lactobacillus family do its job. Secondly, it doesn't let anything else in, and it just makes it ferment faster. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Forgive me. Anyways, all right, so I have a special lid here. It has a hole in the top. I bought these. I have a seal that's gonna go in the bottom of this lid. There we go. And then it comes with this other topper that's gonna go on top. This is gonna fit into this little lid here. And then we're gonna fill this with water after we screw it on, put this on top. It's going to let the fermentation, as it's doing its thing and creating oxygen and fermenting, it's gonna let it bubble out. It's not gonna let any oxygen in, and therefore making your ferment a safer ferment. Again, our grandparents used to do it all the time without all these fancy gadgets. I'm just not as trusting in that process. I'm sure it's fine though. If you like to do it that way, go right ahead. There's many beautiful crocks out there that you can do it with. You can do it in the jar without the airlock. I am just a avid believer in the airlock system. So, but that's just me. Okay, next, again, I don't have patience to sit here and wait for it to create its own brine. So I'm gonna start pushing and dumping into my jar. I always use wide mouth jars because it's easier to get my hand in there. So I'm just gonna start dumping it in. And yes, I will end up creating a mess, but that's okay. So we're just gonna continue dumping it in here until it fills up. So what I do, because I don't have that patience to sit here and massage my kraut to make its own brine, I made some extra brine that we're gonna pour over the top here once we get it packed down in. Okay, so now, oh goodness, I'm making a big mess. So now what I'm gonna do at this point is I'm gonna start smashing this down. I'm gonna smash it down because one, you want to pack in here as much as you can. Two, you wanna make sure that you squeeze out all the air. So, you saw how full it was when I started. I'm just gonna use my fist. I've done it this way for 2 years. Many of you who saw one of my other videos saw how excited I was to get a kraut tamper. So this is my kraut tamper. And I'm just gonna push down with this. But you don't have to have the fancy gadget, as I've said before. You can just use your fist. Okay, I still have a little more cabbage in here. So I'm going to add this in. And, whoops, oh goodness. It's going everywhere. At least most of it went in the jar. That's a good thing. Okay. And just push it down so that you're getting all your air bubbles out. Okay. Next, I'm going to add my brine. Well, I'm going to add my brine that I made. So this brine is a solution of 4 cups of water and 1 tablespoon of sea salt. The water, again, you want it to be unchlorinated water. You can use spring water, you can use reverse osmosis water, just no distilled water and no tap water. Again, the components in tap water that has chlorine and fluoride and whatever else in it will kill the lactobacillus family, therefore not making your kraut do the wonderful things that you want it to do. So I'm going to start pouring this in slowly. And then once it starts to fill up to the top, I'm going to push my kraut down again a little bit. Ooh. Now a lot of people use a weight at the top. I have one weight system that I like. I don't ever use it. It's a ceramic weight. I just don't use it. I read that you can use cabbage leaves, and once I read that, I've been using the cabbage leaves ever since, and they work just fine. So I have 2 of the outer leaves that I saved from before I started shredding my cabbage. I'm gonna fold them up, and I'm gonna start stuffing it down in there. And what you wanna do is you wanna keep your cabbage that you shredded below the level of this cabbage. And you want your cabbage to be below the level of the brine. So I'm gonna add a little more of my brine solution here, filling it up. The other thing I read that you can use is you can use the heart of the cabbage. I'm gonna cut off part of that because I didn't use the whole thing. I saved it. And that is gonna serve as a weight for me to keep everything below the surface of the brine, making for a safer ferment. If you, especially if you're not going to use an airlock system, anything that comes above the level of the brine, you're introducing the risk of growing pathogenic bacteria and pathogenic yeast. So by keeping everything submerged below the level of the brine, again, that helps create that anaerobic condition, preventing that from happening. But to further ensure things, I also use the special lid that's going to help keep that anaerobic bacteria. So that way, just in case anything does happen in there, I have a second level of measure to ensure that I'm not going to have anything harmful growing in there. So I'm going to add just a tiny bit more water. I'd like my water to come up to about right here. There we go. And by the way, if you have a lot of brine in your sauerkraut, after it's done fermenting, you can drink that. They call it gut shots. So you can drink that one, if you're sick. I read somebody that said that it helped them with the stomach flu. They ended up with the stomach flu and were on the bathroom floor, very, very ill. They drank brine from their sauerkraut and they were up in like an hour and functioning like they hadn't been sick at all. So that's pretty amazing. I haven't tried it because thankfully I haven't had the flu. Oh, I just saw my seal came off. So you need that seal in there to also help make sure that you're creating a very good seal in your jar, that it's airtight. All right, so I've got that screwed on now tight. So I'm gonna take the lid off of this. I'm gonna add water into that airlock system, just so that it's about 3/4. I'm gonna move this a little closer so you can see better. There you can see it's about 3/4 of the way up. And I don't know if you can see in here, there's these little slats on this piece on the inside that are gonna let the holes come out. Here, I'll take this out and show you actually. Whoops, now I really made a mess. Oh well, I guess I'm the only one cleaning up, so it doesn't really matter. It has little holes there. And that's where, and this also has a hole in the middle of it connected to this end here. And this end has a hole in it. So that's how the air can get out. It travels up through here, out this hole here, and then out these little holes here. And this little lid here also has little teeny tiny holes in it that let the air escape. Okay, so now I gotta put more water in there because I just dumped everything all over my table. Oh well, it's no big deal. So I'm gonna fill it up so it's above the level of those little tiny holes on that piece there that I just put in. And I'm gonna cap it. And now I'm gonna wait 3 weeks. That's the unfortunate part. It's a food of love, as Emeril Lagasse used to say. So you gotta wait a little bit, 3 weeks, for it to do its full conversion to the lactobacilli family. There's lactobacilli in it, but the longer that you let it ferment, the more that they grow and they break down those sugars in the cabbage. If you want to let it ferment longer than 3 weeks, you're more than welcome to. Your ferment will probably just be more sour, and if that's the way you like it, that's perfect. I like to just let mine do 3 weeks, one, because I'm impatient, as I said before. I don't like to massage my crown, but I'm impatient, so I only wait 3 weeks because I've already got the full effect and I'm happy there, and I don't want to wait any longer to eat my kraut, and neither does my family. So I've been sharing with everybody, and that's the fun thing too. I know this is a lot of kraut. You can make it in a smaller container. You can use a quart size. You don't have to make an entire half gallon of kraut. You can make it in a quart container and just make a small batch, and then you can use the cabbage for something else the rest of the head. You could put it in your salad, or you can saute it, or whatever you want to do. You don't have to make a half gallon. I just like making it in large quantities because I like sharing with everybody. So, all right, thank you for joining me. I hope you all have a great day, and if you ever have any questions about my kraut or any other ferments, please feel free to ask. So, all right, what to do with, oh, I buried it. I buried my control in the cabbage that I made a mess with, but that's okay. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much for joining me.